Why, hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you're new here. I hope you're all doing so well and having a good week so far. Welcome back to another true crime and makeup video. Today we are covering a case that I had never heard of before, and I feel like I might be the only one who's not heard of it. It's the case of Larry Gene Bell. He was an absolute sicko. You know, that's the only words that are coming out to describe him. An absolute sicko. He was twisted, he was sadistic, he kidnapped two beautiful young girls from their home and he would go on to murder both of them, but he was always contacting the family. He would phone the family, give details on how he had killed the girls and also directions on where to find their body, but for the most part he would spend time taunting the family and giving them false hope that their child might still be alive when they in fact weren't. This guy is an absolute monster and no redeemable qualities, right? These people, I mean, of course they don't have any redeemable qualities, but like they really don't. Like they're just bad all over and it seeps outside their pores. Like they just look evil. When I see these murderers, I'm like, yeah, I can tell you're a murderer. But if I walked by them on the street and I didn't know what they had done, would I know? Probably not. If you like true crime and makeup, do not forget to subscribe and put the notification bell on because I am here every single Wednesday and Sunday with a new true crime and makeup video. But I think without any further rambling and any further ado, let's get into the case of Larry Gene Bell. So Larry Gene Bell was born on the 30th of October 1949, which, does that make him a Scorpio? I'll have to check, I always Google it after anyway, but I was just thinking, like, I don't think I've covered a Scorpio. Not sure. But he was born in Ralph, Alabama. He was one of 5 siblings. He had 3 sisters and also 1 brother. Now, a whole lot isn't really known about Larry Bell's childhood and upbringing, but we do know that he did move around quite frequently. Now, Larry Bell attended Eau Claire High School, and this was in Columbia, South Carolina. He went here from 1965 to 1967, before the Bells then went to move on to Mississippi, can't say it. And it was in Mississippi, why am I saying that wrong? That Larry Bell would go on to graduate and then train as an electrician. Now, after his training, he moved back to Columbia, and this is where Larry Bell would meet and marry a young woman. And what she's seen in him, I will never know. So Bell had then went on to join the US Marine Corps in 1970, and it is said that he enjoyed his very short stint in the US Marine Corps because he would be discharged that very same year because he wound up with a severe knee injury that he gave to himself whilst cleaning a gun. Yeah, what a clown. Like, I can't help but think, like, were you really enjoying your time, or did you shoot yourself in the knee because you didn't like it? You know? And then the following year, Larry Bell had went on to become a correctional officer, and this was at the Department for Corrections in Columbia, and he would only be there for 1 month. Larry Laza, he has some trouble holding down a job, okay? Now, Larry Bell and his family, they had moved and settled in Rock Hill in South Carolina in 1972, so this was his wife and his son. However, him and his wife would go on to divorce in 1976. What a shame. Boo-hoo. Now, some reports also state that during the 1970s, Larry Bell had attempted to kidnap 3 women using a knife and also a starter gun, but luckily for these women, these attempts would be unsuccessful, and he did wind up serving a 3-year prison sentence for the attacks. But like, you've attempted to kidnap 3 women, like, I think you deserve more than a 3-year sentence, but apparently not. Now listen, there's not a whole lot to go on in terms of Larry's upbringing, his childhood, his kind of earlier years, but I hope that you're getting the gist that this man is an awful human being. And if you're not yet getting that gist, we're about to get into it. Also, I'm sick and tired of my makeup palettes lying to me because this makeup palette says that this colour is lilac. It's not. That's lilac. This is like magenta. but we're just going to have to go with it. So now we are going to discuss the 31st of May 1985. For the people of South Carolina, this was the end of spring, but the very start of their summer. Like, in South Carolina, it was hot at this point, so summer's upon everyone, they're in a good mood, and this was the same for 17-year-old Sharon F Smith. She is better known as Shari, that's what everyone called her, so I will be referring to her as Shari throughout this case. At this point, Shari had already had a busy day. She has just finished her final year of high school, so she's getting really excited, thinking about her future and planning ahead. Now, Shari had her high school graduation in just 2 days, which she was so excited for because it felt like finally, you know, like real life is starting, which I'm sure we can all relate to when you finish high school. Now, this graduation was going to be followed by a class trip to the Bahamas to celebrate, which, oh my God, sounds absolutely phenomenal. I would love to go to the Bahamas. Like, what a great end of school trip. So this day, Shari had spent her morning doing her everyday prayer with her family. This was something that they would share and do together. After she'd done that, she headed off to rehearse with her chorus. She had actually been selected to sing the Star Spangled Banner alongside one of her other classmates at the commencement. So this was like a big deal for Shari. She took it really seriously. She felt very lucky to, you know, be selected. It was an honour. Now, I will be honest, there is 2 variations of what Shari was up to on the day that she disappeared. So the first variation that you hear is that she was out shopping with her boyfriend for the day. They had spent the day together before she then headed home. However, most sources do state that Shari had actually attended a pool party at one of her friends' houses. Now, because this is the most stated incident, I am going to go with this. It's not totally important to the story because the importance of the story starts when she arrives home, but just to make you aware in case you've heard either version. So Shari, she spent the day with her friends at the pool party. They've had such a good time, planning trips, just talking about their futures, really excited for their graduation and then their trip to the Bahamas. So after all the fun and excitement that day, Shari decides that it's time to head home. Devastatingly, what Shari wouldn't realise on her way home is that there was a car tailing her the entirety of her trip, following her right home. Now, the Smith family home was located at 5700 Platt Spring Road, and this was in Lexington. Now, the Smith family consisted of Robert Smith, also referred to as Bob. I will most likely call him Bob in this case, so if I say Bob, Bob's Robert. Robert Sr., I should say. But we've got Bob Smith, Hilda Smith, her older sister Dawn, and her younger brother Robert Smith. So Shari was the middle child, and we often hear about middle child syndrome, how they are rebellious, they act out because they feel like the lesser child. I'm a middle child. I've never really felt like that. And Shari definitely didn't feel like that. It sort of felt like she was the light of her household who would brighten up everyone's day. The Smiths, they were a very loving, tight-knit family. They were really highly regarded within their community and they were very influential as well, and people thought really highly of them in their church, in their community, in the state. They were just a well-renowned family. Shari was beautiful, okay, and like everyone's beautiful in their own way, but Shari was that model-esque beauty. She had big blonde bouncy curls, she had a rosy pink complexion, and she had these beautiful blue eyes that, wow, absolutely stunning. And so was her sister Dawn. Actually, do you know what? In general, a very lovely looking family, but there was just something about Shari and Dawn that was absolutely breathtaking. Now, Shari was described by people as someone who just radiated positivity and kindness. She could put a smile on anyone's face, regardless of how their day's been. They could have had the worst day in the world or received the worst news, and Shari could still put a big smile on their face. So it's around 3:30 in the afternoon and Shari arrives home. Now, when she arrived home, she pulled up alongside her mailbox, which is right next to the main road. She has quite a long driveway up to her house. I will insert photos so you can get like a better description of it. But she had parked just a bit down from their mailbox. And this is something she always did. When she pulled up to her home, she would always go over, check the mail, take the mail into her car, and then drive up the driveway toward the house. So this is what she's doing. She gets out her car and she's checking the mail. Now, her dad, Bob, looks out the window. He sees Shari's car parked down the road and he's thinking to himself, oh, well, she'll be checking the mail like she always does. She'll be through this door any minute now. So he goes back to doing what he's doing. He's in his office at this point. Bob just thought it would be like any other day where Shari would collect the mail and come in and greet her family. But unfortunately, unbeknownst to this family, this day would be very, very different. So Shari, she obviously goes, opens the mailbox and takes out some of the letters that's in the mailbox. As she does this, the car that has been tailing her the whole way home pulls right up behind her. Now, the man that's in this car is staring at Shari from the driver's side, and it's making Shari feel really uncomfortable because, number one, she doesn't know who this man is, and number two, why is this freak just staring at her? Now, the creep in the car, he has his window rolled down and he says something to Shari, but both her engine and his car engine are still running, so she can't hear him over the noise, and I don't think she wanted to hear him anyway. Before Shari could even comprehend what is going on, this man is out of his car and he has grabbed Shari. Now, he pushes the barrel of a gun up against Shari's back and he basically tells Shari, if you want to live, you'll get in my car. Now, at this point, Shari is absolutely terrified, so of course she complies and she gets in this man's car. Now, somewhere between 5 and 15 minutes had went by and Shari's dad, Bob, realises Shari's not come through the door just yet, which is really weird. So Bob goes, he looks out the window and his heart drops when he realises that Shari's car is still parked exactly where it was and the engine's still running. So he says to his wife, like, this just feels wrong. I can feel in my gut that something is wrong. And she reassures him and tells him not to worry. She says Shari's probably standing at the mailbox and she's probably just reading her mail down there, totally forgetting to just get in the car and come up to the house. So she's trying to reassure her husband, but he just knows at this point that something is terribly wrong. So Bob gets in his car, he rolls down to the bottom of the driveway, and this is where his worst fears are confirmed. Shari was nowhere to be seen. Her car engine was still running and all of her belongings were still inside, and this included her medication that she had to take for her diabetes. Now, the other thing that Bob noticed that really worried him was the mail had been scattered on the ground as if it had been dropped when someone's been startled. Now, of course, the most concerning part of all of this for the family was the fact that Shari had left her diabetes medication that she needed to survive. So Shari had actually suffered from diabetes insipidus, which I hadn't heard of before, so in case you haven't, I'll explain. I thought I knew everything that I had to know about diabetes. My brother, he was a type 1 diabetic, so I thought I knew, but apparently not. So diabetes insipidus basically means that your body cannot regulate fluids, and it can cause your body to become dehydrated very, very quickly and to a life-threatening degree. Now, Bob's concern and Hilda's concern at this point was the fact that the heat in South Carolina would be enough to trigger the diabetes insipidus, and without Shari's medication, she could become dehydrated very, very quickly and the consequences could be fatal. And Shari would never leave and go anywhere without her medication. Now, Bob, he jumps straight back in his car and he drives up to the house. He immediately informs Hilda. They both call the police and Hilda decides that she is going to go out in her car and search the streets for Shari. Hilda goes out, she searches everywhere that she possibly can for Shari, but unfortunately she would come home herself. Now, amazingly, Shari's disappearance would be taken seriously right away. The police were quite familiar with Shari's family and they knew for a fine fact that this is not a girl who would run away, and when they appealed to the public they also stated that they know this girl is not a runaway, so they don't want any false tips that she's been seen here, there and everywhere and claiming that she's ran away. Now also, because Shari had a life-threatening condition, why am I trying to eyeliner whilst I tell this story? Let me just park it for a second. But because Shari had a life-threatening condition, they knew that any time was precious. They had to find Shari as soon as possible if they hoped to get her alive. There's absolutely no way in hell that I'm going to get that eyeliner to match that eyeliner, so I'm just going to get into the case a bit more before I even try. So the efforts were led by the Lexington County Sheriff James R. Metz, and he had basically set up like a base near the Smith home. Now this base would be accessible at all hours. I think it was basically 24/7, and this was for any information or any leads that would come in about Shari's disappearance. They wanted to get this information right away and act on it right away, which is pretty incredible police work. Well, I'm saying it's incredible police work, but like, shouldn't that be like the bare minimum? So the fact that like we think that's like great kind of tells us all we need to know. Now, of course, this is a very small town, so word spread like wildfire, and immediately hundreds of witnesses start coming forward. Now, there was two witnesses, two men who had came forward and saying that they had seen like a reddish, brownish, maroonish coloured car across the road from the Smith home. Now, this was when Shari was at the mailbox. They had seen this car across the road. Now, they had driven by, and they said that when they looked in their rear view mirror, they had seen this car move over to the other side of the road and pull up right alongside Shari at the mailbox. Now, the men had believed that this vehicle was an Oldsmobile Cutlass. They said that it looked like it was a model from 1982 to 1984. And they said that the driver appeared to be a man maybe in his early 30s. Now, sadly, even with all the eyewitnesses that were coming forward and the information that they were receiving, they had no luck on finding a perpetrator. Now, at this point, there is over 100 volunteers combing the area. They are thoroughly searching through bush, woods, wherever they can that they think Shari could be. They just want to make sure that no stone is left unturned. Now, there's also helicopters, there's bloodhounds, and the Smith family had also been wiretapped, like their phone lines, in case any calls came through. Now, less than a mile from the Smith family home, Shari's red bandana had been found, and police thought that this was possibly Shari trying to leave a breadcrumb of the direction her abductor has taken her in, which is such a smart idea. Like, to think of her being in such a state of fear, but remembering to do something like that is pretty amazing. Now, with the red bandana being found, although it raised the hopes of the public, of the police, of the family, unfortunately, this would not bring the case any further along. Now, with word spreading so quickly of Shari's abduction and the ongoing case, word very quickly spread to the FBI in the Columbia, South Carolina field office. And then 2 days later, the Smith family home receives a phone call. It was the abductor of Shari. Now, the police, they had kind of suspected this, which was why the Smith family home's phones had been wiretapped. They were expecting that the abductor would call with a ransom demand in order to get Shari back. So when this call came through, they are listening and they're expecting a ransom demand from the abductor. However, this abductor didn't want money, not at all. He was calling to satisfy his own sadistic needs and to taunt the Smith family regarding Shari's abduction. He told the family that when he abducted Shari, she had the fear of God invoked in her. Now, the abductor would then go on to ask the Smith family if they had received a letter in the post. At this point, they hadn't, so they tell him, no, we've not. And the abductor just goes on to continue toying with the family, really just being so evil beyond words. And he was trying to give the family some sort of false hope that Shari was still alive. Now, the next day, a letter to the Smith family would be discovered, and this was opened first of all by Bob, Shari's dad. And it was dated for the 1st of June 1985, and devastatingly, the letter was titled Last Will and Testament. Now, this letter was 2 pages long, and in this letter, Shari would bravely ask her family not to allow her death to ruin their lives. And she also stated at one point, "I love you all so damn much. Sorry, Dad, I had to cuss for once. Jesus forgive me." And I think the worst thing and the most heart-wrenching thing about this letter was Shari's request to have a closed casket. Like, we can only imagine what was happening to her that she would request a closed casket. Now, over a period of time, the abductor would continue making calls to the Smith family, and he would actually make 8 calls. 7 of these calls were recorded. Now, at first on these phone calls, he would ask to speak to Hilda, Shari's mum. He really seemed to love taunting the woman. And after he had spoken to Shari's mum, he then moved on to Dawn, Shari's older sister, who, might I mention, had a striking resemblance to Shari. Remember, I've said, like, they're both models. They look like models. And at one point, he even indicated that Dawn might have been his original victim that he had in mind. At one point in a phone call, he stated, "All I wanted to do was make love to Dawn." So the police thought, has he took Shari thinking it was Dawn? And like, I don't know what it is about these sadistic freaks that seem to think that they would even have a chance with someone like Dawn or Shari. Like, that is why they take without consent, because they know that they would never ever have a chance, and they're so sick and twisted that they think it's their God-given right to take whatever they want. Like, we had Robert Black the other day, right? The guy looks like a melted cheese pizza, and this guy, he's no better. And then during another phone call, Bell would state that him and Shari had now become one soul, and he would taunt Shari's sister by telling her all the details regarding her death. He had said that he wrapped her entire head in duct tape so she would suffocate to death. And on another call, he had informed the family of the exact directions which would lead them to Shari's body. He then ended that call by saying, "We are waiting, God chose us." Now, Shari's body would devastatingly be found in the exact place that the abductor and murderer on the phone told the family where she would be. And this was 18 miles west of the Smith family home. Now, an autopsy would reveal that at this point, Shari had been dead for around 4 days, and it is suspected that Shari had been killed 12 hours after her abduction. Now, think of the phone calls that this sicko is making to this family, fine well knowing that Shari is gone, and they later suspected that when he had called saying that him and Shari were now one soul, that was because he had murdered Shari at this point. Now, due to the level of decomposition on Shari's body, unfortunately, they were not able to determine whether or not Shari had been sexually assaulted. And I hate to speculate things like that because I hope to God that she wasn't. But when you hear his intentions with Dawn, it's hard to believe that he wouldn't have. Now you would think at this point that Belle is finished with the Smith family and no more phone calls would be made, but this would not be the case. He wanted to continue to traumatise the Smith family. Then on the afternoon of June the 14th, 1985 in Wagner, South Carolina, now actually no, let me just intercept this right now, right? Is it Wagner or is it Wagner? Because I don't know, anyone from the UK might remember when the X Factor was on, there was a guy on it and his name was spelled Wagner, but it was pronounced Wagner. So what is it? But on this day, 9-year-old Deborah May Helmick and her younger brother were playing outside of their trailer just beneath the window, right outside. Now, they were just playing and having a nice time when a car rapidly pulled into the trailer park, going at the speed of light. He approached the children in the car and then he very quickly grabbed Deborah by the waist. Now, later on, a neighbour was actually able to confirm and identify who the abductor was, as they had witnessed this whole thing unfold. Now, Deborah kicked and screamed as much as she could, but Bell was obviously able to overpower her, and he threw her in the car and rapidly drove off with her. Now, the neighbour who had witnessed all of this unfold, he obviously rushed right outside to see if he could get like a registration plate or something like that, and he was able to get close enough that he could see the abductor's plate starting with D, and also that it was a South Carolina plate. Deborah May was an absolutely gorgeous little girl. She was actually very much like Shari, apart from the age difference of course, but she had this lovely, beautiful blonde hair and these bright blue eyes. She was just gorgeous. Now, 8 days later, on June the 22nd, Bell would make his final call to the Smith family home, and this time it was to give directions on where Deborah May's body could be found. Now, like the police did when the directions were given for Shari, they followed these directions to a T, and it brought them to Deborah May's body, which at this stage was severely decomposing. Now, Deborah's body was found wearing a tank top and some shorts, and then she had silk adult bikini briefs pulled up over the top of her cotton pants. Now, this confirmed to police that the reason for these abductions was of a sexual motivation, given the fact that he had obviously undressed Deborah at some point to put these silk briefs on her. In Deborah's hair, they also found a sticky adhesive which would be very similar to duct tape, which led them to believe that, like Shari, duct tape had been wrapped around Deborah's head to suffocate her to death. Finally, we are going to be talking about the downfall of Larry Gene Bell. He would be caught due to writing in a yellow legal pad that he had used for Shari's letter. Who would ever have known that a yellow writing pad could be the downfall of a killer? Now, given the fact that Shari's letter had been written on yellow paper from a legal pad, it's very likely that Shari's letter would contain indentations from things previously written on the pad. So maybe, just maybe, they could get something from this. Now, forensic document examiner Mickey Dawson, he had used an electrostatic detection apparatus. Now, this apparatus could be used to basically detect indentations on the paper, and he would reveal some incredible, groundbreaking evidence to bring down Larry Bell. Now, this machine was able to detect indentations of a list of what looked like names and numbers, and they deemed this to be like a in case of an emergency list, like emergency numbers that should be called. Now, one of these numbers that they were able to identify had only one single digit missing from it. They had the other digits, they just needed to figure out the last one. Now, the first 3 digits was 205. This showed police that it was an Alabama number. And then the next 3 digits was 837. This was the exchange for Huntsville, Alabama. Now, they tested this phone number with the 9 different options available until one time someone picked up. So a young man picked up the phone, and the police right away ask if he has any connections in South Carolina. This young man says, well, yeah, I do. My parents are from South Carolina. His father, Ellis Shepherd, lived only 15 miles from the Smith home. So the young man's parents were a South Carolina couple, and they were going to go and visit their son, the young man, in Alabama. So when they knew they were going to go and visit their son, they had organised to get a house sitter, so someone was there to look after their home whilst they were away. Now, just in case of emergency, in case the house sitter had to reach them, they had written down the young man, their son's phone number and his name. Now, I hear you asking, Anna, who was the house sitter? It was Larry Gene Bell. Now, the police, they went on to play a recording that they had obtained from the phone calls made to the Smith home, and as soon as the recording began to play, the Shepherds immediately recognised that voice, and they shout out, "It's Larry Gene Bell." The police have got their man. The Shepherds, their phone records were examined, basically. Yeah, examined. And they were able to reveal that some of the calls made after Shari's kidnap had come from the Shepherd's home, their phone. Now, when Bell was arrested, his car was like a greyish colour, and the licence plate was different than what the witness had described. It didn't start with a D. However, they go through his car, they're searching the car, and they come across the original licence plate. The original licence plate was DCE 604. The D at the start that the eyewitness had seen. This is their man. Now, within Bell's home, they found 6 hairs that were microscopically similar to Shari Smith's. They also discovered silk, satin underwear, like bikini underwear, which was the exact ones that had been placed on Deborah May's body. Now, the FBI profiler who had previously profiled this offender did say that it would have been a white male in his early 30s, had a failed marriage, and would also have prior sex crimes on their record. Now, sitting across from Bell, Bell stated the following: "All I know is that the good Larry Jean Bell could never have done this, but the bad Larry Jean Bell could have." Like, what is it with these like murderers who want to do the whole "it wasn't me, it was Patricia" kind of act? Like, it was yourself. You've not got your good Larry and bad Larry. Like, I swear to God, if my channel ever grows to the heights where I can have merch, then I'm making every single one of us here a top that said it was Patricia, because they're always pulling this crap, right? Always. Anyway, so John Douglas, he would go on to describe Larry Jean Bell as one of the most sadistic murderers he has ever sat face to face with. Now, over the course of the 2 trials in June of 1986 and March of 1987, Larry Jean Bell was found guilty of the kidnapping and the murder of Shari Smith and also Deborah May. Now, from having been found guilty of his convictions, Larry Jean Bell was sentenced to death. Love that. And he would go on to be executed on October the 4th, 1996. Now, Larry, being the electrician that he was more than happy to basically nominate himself to be executed by the electric chair instead of the lethal injection. He wanted to go out as he came in. However, the bit that sickens me to my core, right, is the fact that he said that he wanted the electric chair not only because he was an electrician, but because it would send him to heaven faster to be with his 2 girls. Are you joking me? Are you joking me? You're not going to go to heaven, and you will never, ever, ever see those beautiful young girls again. Do not think you're in their league. You're sick, twisted, and evil. Your elevator is going downstairs, my friend. You ain't going up to the Golden Gates. Absolutely not. Now, Larry Jean Bell, he had also been a strong suspect in another disappearance, and this was the November 1984 disappearance of Sandy Elaine Cornett. This young girl was from Charlotte, North Carolina. Now, the reason that he was such a strong suspect in this case was because he was friends and had worked with one of Sandy's former boyfriends. Pretty strong case against him, I think. Now, I just want to end this case on kind of like a lighter, happier note. A year after Shari Smith's death, her older sister Dawn was actually crowned Miss South Carolina. She then went on to get married and she became a Christian singer/songwriter, and she would later go on to write a book about her family's ordeal and what happened to her sister Shari, and also to keep Shari's voice and name alive. And she's just done such great things, and I bet Shari is so proud of her. So proud of her. So my loves, that is it for another true crime and makeup case. I really hope you enjoyed this. Enjoyed it meaning it was interesting. Hopefully I've brought a new case to light for some of you guys. Maybe it's one that you've not heard of. And ultimately, I just really hope that I was able to do justice on this case for the victims and to keep their voices alive and heard. If you do enjoy my videos, please don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. Put the notification bell on so you don't miss when I upload, which is every Wednesday and Sunday, with a brand new true crime case and new makeup look. Although I think I'm becoming like Lizzie McGuire, a makeup repeater, because I'm sure I've done this look before, but hey. If you know anyone in your life who likes true crime or true crime makeup, please send them my way. I know some of you guys are already recommending my channel, which means the world to me, but I just really want to grow this community. I absolutely love YouTube, and if I could do this and bring awareness to these cases and in the future, you know, help charities and stuff like that, that would just be amazing. Now, don't forget, down below you will find my email address where you can send your case suggestions. I am working my way through my emails because I've actually received quite a lot, so thank you for keeping me busy. I really appreciate it. Or if you would rather, you can leave case suggestions in the comments. I always get back to comments. I love going through and reading the comments. Down below you will also find my social media, so my TikTok and my Instagram, but ultimately just make sure you're subscribed here. If you want any details of the products used my face to date, they will also be listed down below in the description with the links if there's anything you would like to purchase. But thank you so much for all your support as always. It means the entire world to me, and I am so grateful for you. But until Sunday, behave, don't be a bad person, be a good person, look out for each other, and I'll see you then. Bye.